Hello, everybody. This is actually our second version of making this live. If you're a live watcher, the sound did not work on our initial version. My name is Stephen Mead with Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. And we're doing something a little bit different this week. Our stats are through May 14th, 2021. You may have noticed that our previous video backgrounds look a little too perfect. They are not actually real. And some people have asked about that, whether those are real spaces or real rooms. Unfortunately, they are not. So I thought I would do something interesting this week for you, and that is show our actual background where we filmed this. So I filmed this inside of my own house. And one of the things that's a little bit weird is my house has a lot of glass. So it means that finding locations where the lighting is good for Zoom. And what I mean by that is having lighting where the light is in front of me and not in back of me is really difficult to find in this house. If I'm sitting at a weird angle with like a table like right here, that's the reason why. This is the angle where the lighting looks really good. And you can see what's actually going on in back of me. We got a staircase and a living room and a dog toy and those kind of normal things. So we have some good news this week. I like good news. And I feel like, the last year, we've been doing our first time buyer video, our weekly videos for I don't think we're quite at a year yet, but we haven't had a lot of weeks that have been really complimentary and really good news. I think this is definitely one of the better weeks news wise. Let's jump right into it. I'm excited to share the good news with all of you. So we're starting off with prices, and this is probably the one thing that might not necessarily be good news. And I'm going to kind of go over what's happening here. So if you look, especially for our entry-level single-family home, which is our 3-bedroom, 2-bath detached property, you'll see that, prices were heading up steadily, and then they just kind of flattened out. And now they've accelerated a bit. And in fact, if you look here, we went from 700 to 725 in a 1 week period of time. What's going on? Well, what's happening is, if you'll remember, this chart of closed homes is based on sales that were negotiated about 30 days ago and have just closed in the last week. So when you take it into that context, what you begin to see is what was going on. Well, when interest rates went up, that kind of put the kibosh on prices, right? That like held prices in check. Then we started seeing a few weeks back, interest rates dropped. And what happened? This is like a seesaw maneuver. So if interest rates go down, what happens to the other side of the seesaw? Prices tend to go up, right? Or at least they tend to accelerate their curve. So for example, if they were going up a little bit, now they're going up a lot. And if we look down here for condos, we actually see something similar, kind of mostly steady, though we did have a little bit of a blip here. And then an acceleration in the last week, again, of $25,000. So moving on here, when we look at our total monthly payment, I think what's interesting to note here is that we are not at a peak number. And what does that tell me when I don't see a peak number? It leads me to believe that we do have a little bit of room for prices to grow, albeit at what I think might be a little bit of a slower rate. I don't know if we're going to have these kind of $25,000 weeks. So if you look here, our total monthly payment for these example homes, for these 25th percentile entry-level homes, is assuming 5% down, including mortgage insurance, taxes, etc. We're at $3,881, which is below our peak of 4,011. In fact, this isn't even a second place peak. It's really kind of like a third place peak that we've had since the beginning of the year. If you go down to our entry level condos, what you see there is, again, we're at 2,893. We are well below that peak. And again, we're not really even, I think we're even on like our fourth place number over the past several months for 2021. So the nice thing is prices may be heading upward, but we're not seeing the payment levels reaching new heights, not yet at least. And again, if we go through our minimum household income required, we've got about $95,000 minimum household required, assuming no other debt, for our entry-level single-family home. And we have about $71,000 here for our entry-level 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. Just as a reminder, we run our stats across Los Angeles and Orange counties. Though for the most part, you're going to find San Diego is pretty similar. And in the last couple of years, Riverside has really started to act a lot more like Orange County than Riverside did in the past. So we've been talking a little bit about sort of the pricing of housing, and the pricing is very important. But I think if you are a buyer in today's marketplace, well, the most important thing to you is not pricing, it's availability of housing. Are houses available? How hard is it to find a house? How hard is it to get an offer accepted? How much choice do you have? These are all very important things, and we're going to answer that with the next set of stats. So jumping back in here, let me get out my pointer again. So jumping back in here, looking at our absorption rate, right? What is this sort of run rate of houses coming on the market to houses getting sucked up into escrow? And look what's happened. We have seen the easing on both our entry level single family home. We're down to 86%. That is still firmly in the very seller's market, but it's not a crazy circus like market when we're over 90%. And our condo number has dipped back into the 70s, which again is still a seller's market, but it's much closer to a supply demand equilibrium than we see when those numbers are kind of in the 80s or the 90s. So if you're a condo buyer, this past week has been pretty good. In fact, we are very close to sort of our low since kind of all the way back in January in terms of our absorption rate. So really, if you are a buyer in the marketplace, especially for condo, this past week has been a pretty good week to be a condo buyer. So again, going to our next chart, total inventory, and this is really the biggest win, I think, if you're a buyer looking in the marketplace. We have actually hit a new height in inventory of entry-level single-family homes. So, we're still nowhere near where we were towards the end of last year, last fall. But, this is good. I'm going to take the wins where we can get them. In terms of your choice and selection, you have not had a better week in 2021 than you have right now. You have more choices than you have had at any other point in time in 2021. And, we see something a little bit similar in our entry-level condo, right? We saw that number just steadily deteriorating. And actually, it's finally started to kind of swing back the other way. Hopefully, we'll see a little bit more inventory in that condo market jump up as well. Another statistic that we use is our 14-day still active percent. And I haven't talked a lot about this statistic. And before I go into it, I'm going to jump out a little bit here and talk about why this is a different statistic than just looking at absorption rate. Absorption rate is kind of this whole market. How many houses came on the market? How many houses were taken off the market by going into escrow? But that doesn't tell you which houses are coming off the market, which ones are going into escrow. Is it the ones that just came on the market, which indicates one thing about a market, right? If you see every fresh meat just get sucked up, it means people are just anxious for any inventory, right? But if you start to see some of those new ones staying on and some of the older houses that didn't come on the market in the last 2 weeks go into escrow, well, that's a little bit of a different market. So let's go take a look, bearing that in mind, and we can talk about what we're seeing and how this is a little bit different than it's been in weeks past. So jumping back in here, looking at this, we have this number of what's available really has been pretty strong and going up the last couple of weeks. And what does that mean? It means that many of the buyers are they're going after some of that older inventory, and there's more of the newer inventory remaining after 2 weeks than we've seen in years past. It also means that the level of inventory of new homes coming on the market might actually be starting to accelerate a little bit. This week, the CDC did lift a lot of mask mandates. A lot of things loosened up. LA County is in the yellow tier. Orange County is heading to the yellow tier. It's possible that this may be having an effect on supply, and sellers are feeling more comfortable putting these homes on the market. Finally, we're going to take a look at our week's supply of homes. And great news, really, for the last 3 weeks for condos, this number has gone up. And for the last 4 weeks in our entry-level single-family homes, this has gone up. Now, it's important to reference this back, right? Towards the end of last year, we had nearly 4 weeks of inventory and nearly 8 weeks of inventory for our entry level condo market. However, these are good numbers. I'm going to take the win here. 4 weeks straight is absolutely a trend. And I do think that we might be on to a market that is at least, its rate of acceleration may be slowing. So I wouldn't call this a decline, but I think living in a world where home prices go up 5 or 6% a year is really a much more livable type of a scenario than where home prices go up 10 to 20% a year. I think that's really a much healthier market for people. I think that's a much healthier market overall, not just for our entry level home buyers. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. Questions, comments, absolutely. We do love those. And finally, we're also working on our bubble video, which should come out in the next few days. We've got some slides we're creating just for that to kind of explore. Are we in a bubble? Are we at a risk for market correction? As you know, our style is to really examine both sides of issues and not just kind of issue realtor speak out there. So obviously, we're looking forward to kind of getting that out there. We hope that you're looking forward to kind of seeing the results. There's already some numbers that are, frankly, fairly surprising. Things that we were surprised by when we started looking at the stats. So as always, if you are looking to buy your first home in Los Angeles or Orange County, we'd love to hear from you and love the opportunity to work with you. Questions, comments, keep them coming, and we will talk to you real soon.